India dominates the Asia Cup, thrashes Pakistan in the two encounters between the two sides. Even as Pakistan's provocative posturing makes many wonder, is this country and is this team fit to be in any international tournament? MiG-21 finally bows out and in great style. Final flight led by Air Chief Marshal AP Singh. Rajnath Singh, Raksha Mantri, hails MiG-21, calls it a major training ground for the Indian Air Force.
ऐतिहासिक मिशन हो, हर बार MiG-21 ने तिरंगे का सम्मान बढ़ाया है, इसलिए यह फेयरवेल हमारी कलेक्टिव मेमोरीज का भी है और हमारे नेशनल प्राइड का भी है.
Well, viewers, on to our top story this week. Well, just 4 weeks after Trump announced the tariffs against India, he has come out with a fresh set of tariff tsunami. Every day, there is yet another tariff announcement that comes in from Donald Trump. Because for Trump and his administration, weaponizing global trade seems to be the only route and the only tool to address everything that they've promised. From their campaign promises to their big political goals, everything comes down to just weaponizing trade. Now, what are these latest measures? They've been about announcing a 100% hike with regard to specific duties on specific products, and that includes pharmaceuticals. In addition to pharmaceuticals, there are several other categories as well. That includes furniture, fitted furniture, upholstery. Several of these items now, viewers, is labor-intensive in nature. And that's important to note, because in all probability, Americans will struggle to find domestic alternatives to these options, because it's unlikely to be as cheap as some of these are, which are being manufactured in Vietnam, in China, in India, and then being sent across and exported to America. Now, American consumers will probably be, in all likelihood, the real loser, because these labor-intensive options are not going to be available. In Donald Trump's mission, I must correct the international trade order that has been what he feels completely unfair to American economics in the last 30 years or so. But in the end, it's going to be the American consumer that will stand out and be the real loser. I'm going to now tell you more about the pharmaceutical space, where there has been a fresh tariff that has been levied. And I'm also going to tell you why is it that this time around India is not going to be impacted very majorly, very significantly. Let's put that out for you to understand. Now, there's a 100% levy that has been put on pharmaceuticals, that's correct, but that doesn't include generics. That's the most important part. And India is not manufacturing. In fact, the major bulk of it is generics that India manufactures, where 75% of its exports are largely generic in nature. And those that are not, which is the remaining part of it, you have a lot of our major pharma companies actually producing locally in America, and that is also likely to be less impacted, which is big Indian pharma companies have set up shop in America. But the last and most important part, which needs to be identified and pressed upon in detail, viewers, for you to better understand why this time around, this is not an India-specific tariff. Unlike the 50% that was imposed, which was a Russian oil, because we were importing Russian oil, and therefore we should have an extra 25% levied only on us, this time around that punitive tariff is not there, targeting only India. And that is the single biggest distinction that needs to be kept in mind when we talk about this. This is something that Donald Trump is trying to only protect the American pharmaceutical industry and hoping that the American consumer will finally see the wisdom in what he's trying to do. But this is a week where there's been a lot that has happened apart from just the fresh set of tariffs that have been imposed. Now, what has happened is that this also week saw Donald Trump throw in yet another shocker, and that was raising the visa fee for the H-1B visas by a huge amount. It's now 100,000 US dollars. Or about 86 lakh rupees. Now, with a wave of panic and confusion that has now spread out across Indian communities and the global tech industry as well, because a lion's share of that is by Indian tech talent. And let's make no mistake about it, viewers. This is not a charity scheme that the Americans were running at any point of time. They didn't have the tech talent, and India was providing it. And hence, we had a large chunk of the H-1Bs. Let's be very clear about it. But the US government is also now overhauling the entire process, scrapping the lottery system that favors high-waged workers. Indians will be impacted, but there is reasons to not worry. And I'm going to put that out right now because around the world, as I said, Indian talent is now being attracted around the world, and they are rolling the red carpet. And this is exactly where they are rolling the red carpet for you. The geographies where it is happening: Canada, UK, Germany, all of them. And let's tell that to you one by one. First and foremost, Canada. There's an express entry that's being announced. There is a global talent stream that is being targeted because why? As I said, unlike the hostile atmosphere that the Trump administration has put forth, the world over, high-tech talent is being sought, and that's exactly what Canada is doing. Next up, in Germany, the EU blue card is being issued. In fact, the German envoy has already spoken about how he feels that Indian tech talent should put this as an inflection point and move towards Germany because they need this talent. Job seeker visa is being issued and is being done on a fast basis. Next up, the UK skilled worker visas is being issued, and visa restrictions are being eased out because tech talent is something, high skill talent is something that the world needs. Lastly, that also includes South Korea, where fresh set of visa opportunities are being given, and that includes passes and special visas. The STEM visa, which many know only the Indians are best at in terms of providing. And let's get you the benefits as to what really some of these other countries are offering and why it is time to pivot. What is Trump's loss will be gained for several of these other countries. First and foremost, there are lower visa fees. Nobody is giving that kind of a visa hike that only Donald Trump and his administration are thinking of. So there are much lower visa fees. Second, and equally important part that some of these other countries are offering, which is predictability. That is the single most important aspect. Every day there is a new bomb that comes in because Donald Trump thinks that he's woken up from the left side of the bed, he has a different view. From the right side of the bed, he has a different view. None of that in any other parts of the world. And that predictability is most important when you want high skilled labor and best of the best talent to come to your country. And finally, easier pathways to citizenship, easier pathways to be able to see what lies ahead in terms of your career trajectory across 10, 20, 30 years. Time now to get you. It's time now to get you the top voice segment on the show, and that is Alok Seth. He is founding partner of 3Y Ventures, an interesting venture capitalist voice on the show this week to talk more about what are some of these visa changes that Donald Trump is getting in and how some of the other countries are rolling the red carpet mean for tech talent. Alok, thanks much for speaking to me on India Sense. Let me start by asking you the impact that you feel that the H-1B visa hike is going to bring in terms of the Indian tech talent, and how significant could that be?
Right, Gaurie, thanks for having me on the show. I think the new H-1B visa is not just an immigration tariff. I think it is a tariff on the Indian talent. I think more than the visa fee and more than the immigration reform, I see it as it as an effective tariff on the Indian talent. I think for big Indian IT firms, it's a margin hit. But for the startups, it's a wall that needs to be scaled if anybody is looking at going into US and scaling up their business there. So having said that, I also feel that it is an opportunity for India, wherein the talent will stay in India, and it is likely that Indian talent can be effectively used for AI or deep tech, and Indian companies can create products out of India for the world.
All right. Alok, then which brings me to ask you in terms of specific areas, whether you talk about deep tech, whether you talk about machine learning, whether you talk about AI, these are areas where there is a massive skill gap, the gap that Indian tech pipeline, the talent pipeline really fulfills. Do you agree?
That's right. That's right. I frankly think that the Indian talent is pretty much across the American innovation ecosystem. So it's not just one area which gets impacted. I think you find Indian talent in ML. You find Indian talent doing deep tech. So it's not only about a specific sector which is is going to have significant impact. I think it is going to be the entire American innovation ecosystem. There will be a ripple effect across the board. Just to give you an example, 71% of all the H-1B visas were issued out of India. The next highest was China, which was at 11 odd percent. So you can fairly estimate, the scale at which the Indian talent was being deployed across the American innovation system. The likely hit, for example, Amazon alone is likely to pay $1 billion more if they have to pay this fee to have this talent on board after the tariffs are put in place.
Which brings me to ask you, Alok, that are you surprised that with Indians being so important in the tech ecosystem in America, there haven't been that many voices that have come in from the influential Indian American community itself, the influential Indian American CEO community itself?
I think there are political undercurrents, there are political compulsions to what is happening. I think every if you look at it basically has the U.S. domestic politics at play. Plus, there is the entire tariff and trade discussion which is happening currently with various countries, and these are ways to uh, you know. Uh, basically leverage those talks, put pressure on the trading partners, and also play to the galleries, to the local voters. So I think it's a combination of all of this, and I'm sure the Indian diaspora is a soft power for India, and there will be a significant role they will play eventually. I think these are short-term. This could turn out to be short-term measures. Hopefully, things are kind of considered in a longer run. But I think there is resilience in the IT sector as well. I think we are talking about $100,000 average salary. If we consider, it will be about 30% of the average salary over a 3-year period, and even lesser if it is a 5-year period. So uh, it is possible that the lower end jobs are impacted significantly, but there could be a significant number of jobs which still go ahead with this tariff in place, like it is happening for the tariff on the goods. I mean, today people are paying that extra to kind of get their food supplies from India,
Okay.
for example, or goods from China.
All right, Alok, let's leave it there. Let's hope that the soft power delivers a hard punch. This is their time to speak up against some of these policies. Let's leave it there. Alok Sheth, thanks much for speaking to me. The first wide-angle story on the show, well, the flux, the uncertainty and the turmoil in Bangladesh is actually far from over. It seems the country is now witnessing its worst economic crisis, a sharp downward spiral for a country that the World Bank highlighted as one of the fastest growing in just 2 years back. Well, on his part, it seems that Muhammad Yunus is now having a case of completely misplaced priorities. On one end is this economic downturn that is staring at him, where student revolution, which ostensibly brought him to power, at some point of time will require those jobs to be brought back. But instead, his focus seems to be completely different, which is around SAARC, which is around building the Pakistan-Bangladesh Bonhomme. Before I get to that, and before how significant that will be in terms of case of misplaced priorities. I want to play out this report that tells you how deep the economic mess in Bangladesh really is right now.
Empty wallets, shuttered factories, rising despair. Nobel laureate Muhammad Yunus came to power on a wave of hope. But today, Bangladesh is sinking under a tidal wave of economic pain. What was once a rising economy is now spiraling into its deepest crisis in decades. Foreign currency reserves, once over $33 billion in 2021, have now fallen to around $20 billion, barely enough to cover a few months of imports. Foreign direct investment has dried up, plunging by almost 40% compared to last year. With no election dates set yet, after more than a year since former PM Sheikh Hasina's ouster, investors are wary due to corruption and a lack of policy clarity under the interim government. Meanwhile, the banking sector has plunged into a crisis as a vicious cycle of defaulted loans, bad regulation, corruption and more has further weakened the economy. The Asian Development Bank revealed Bangladesh's loan default will touch $74 billion. The garment industry, the country's lifeline, is shrinking. Exports down, factories closing, throwing thousands out of jobs every month. Yunus, once celebrated as a savior, now faces the wrath of a nation betrayed as parties from all sides push for polls. Bangladesh stands at a dangerous crossroad as the country is on the brink of sliding into its gravest financial meltdown in a generation. Under Yunus, the clock is ticking.
Viewers, Bangladesh is likely to hold its election on the 12th of February, and the government is likely to be formed by the 17th of February next year. But till then, there are three key hurdles that the Yunus government will have to overcome and focus on. It needs to first ensure that the polls are free and fair, do not give a free pass to the radical Islamists. It needs to ensure that the aspiration to become the hub of regional connectivity needs to be aligned to practical realities. It should not be that SAARC, it aims to in fact turn SAARC into a Pakistan-Bangladesh bonhomie session, which is what Yunus's priorities seem to be about. And thirdly, focus on the biggest priority that lies in front of you, which is to build bridges, and that includes with New Delhi as well. Second wide-angle story on the show, well, Donald Trump, man of many ironies, man of many double standards. Well, normally it is for Americans to figure out what their president's double standards are all about, but what I am referring to is just what happened in the last 48 hours. Just think, you have an American president who met a Pakistani army chief just days after he bombed his civilians in the Khyber Pakhtunkhwa region using military-grade aircraft and military weapons. It killed 30 women and children. Donald Trump became the first elected civilian. In fact, he mainstreamed the Pakistani army chief as well. He met the elected civilian government finally after he had already legitimized the army chief as the de facto head of Pakistan. Of course, two wrongs do not make a right, but it seems that Pakistani civilians are less valuable to the Trump administration as compared to the Ukrainian civilians for whom suddenly Donald Trump is now batting for. Why is he not batting for the Pakistani civilians is the key question. Why is he meeting Shehbaz, Sharif and Asim Munir just hours and days after they bombed their own people? The 90-minute meeting had three clear objectives for Donald Trump. Rare earth minerals being the first and foremost in the restive Balochistan region. But that starry-eyed American operations need to keep in mind is that this is an area where even the Chinese have not been able to succeed simply because it is an area which is extremely restive and very tense. The second thing that needs to be kept in mind is the fact that this meeting was important to further build on those alleged crypto connections that somehow tie the Pakistanis and allegedly the Trump family as well. And the third reason why this meeting was important was, well, no prizes for guessing, the Nobel Prize. India has all along maintained that Operation Sindoor ended because India's military objectives were achieved. So what can Donald Trump do then? He needs to host the Pakistanis because he needs to have the Nobel. And those were the three reasons why this meeting took place. Well, viewers, on that note, slipping into a short break in India Sense, we come back more and talk more about why Canada needs to finally wake up to the Khalistani cause.
गोल्ड प्लस ऑप्टिमिस्टिक रिफ्लेक्टिव ग्लास लगाओ, धूप की गर्मी को दूर भगाओ और बिजली का बिल भी बचाओ।
सल्यूट है जी, आप देश की रक्षा में जान लगा देते हैं
और आप
घर घर में तार लगाते हैं जी। ई बीम टेक्नोलॉजी से बनी, न जले न पिघले, सबकी रक्षा करे।
हम सरहद पर लोगों की रक्षा करते हैं और आप देश के अंदर। सल्यूट तो बनता है जी।
अपार अणुशक्ति फायर प्रोटेक्ट वायर, अपार देश का तार।
Well, we're on an incredible piece of Indian engineering. Shiv and I are absolutely privileged to be here with Larsen & Toubro in Hazira near Surat. This is a tank. It's called the Zorawar. It takes the battle to the Chinese in altitudes upwards of 15,000 feet.
You know, Vishnu, it's actually incredible that for a country that has fought so many wars in the mountains and at high altitude, a country didn't know until it had another war on its hands that it needed a tank like the Zorawar.
No, you're
and that's
quite
the
right.
kind of tank we're sitting on.
You're absolutely right. Now, India does have a history of light tanks.
Yeah.
We've had the Sherman tank, pushed up the Zojila Pass in 1948. We've had the AMX light tank. We've had the PT-76. But they want Indian.
Yeah.
This is an Indian tank for a new modern Indian requirement. And it stands out as the best tank of its class, possibly in the world.
There are tanks like the T-15, which the Chinese deployed in Ladakh during the standoff. There is the Sprut, which is a Russian tank, which the Russians have been offering us, hoping that India will buy it along with all the other Russian weapons. But the Indian army and the Indian government took a decision that this was a requirement that needed to be met here in India. And that's the reason why, we use the phrase mission mode, Vishnu, which is building a weapon system like the Zorawar in response to a live threat or a live combat situation, which is what Eastern Ladakh really is. And that's the reason why Vishnu and I sitting here on the Zorawar means so much, Vishnu. This is the actual tank that was there in the mountains.
And this was a tank which was designed and developed and prototyped and rolled out in 21 months. This has already done trials quite successfully by LNG, not yet user trials, up in Ladakh, out in the desert as well. They are fixing it to make it even better, and very soon it's going to be handed over to the Indian Army to put it through some incredibly rigorous trials, because acquisition of these tanks in very large numbers takes place only once that's done.
Well, let's just talk a little bit about why mountain tanks are necessary, Vishnu. In places like Ladakh, where you've got very steep slopes, access is difficult, the close.
Well, viewers, in a sign of warming ties, Canadian Foreign Minister Anita Anand, who is of Indian origin, is all set to visit India next month. She will be meeting her counterpart in India as well. Now, the announcement just came after Ajit Doval met his Canadian counterpart. Remember, security is one of the key aspects of this relationship, and return to structured security dialogue is something that hopes to bring the strained ties onto an issue and onto a path of not just recovery, but ensure that they grow from there. That's an optimistic note, but there's also something that needs to be cautious about, and that is the threat that looms over this thawing relationship, the K-terror threat that needs to be spoken about. It needs to be addressed before it derails ties yet again. And that is something that New Delhi is very clear about. Because for New Delhi, priorities are clear: counter-terrorism, defending territorial integrity, safeguarding sovereignty, fighting transnational organized crime. These are extremely clear red lines. These are areas where the Carney government needs to walk the talk. it needs to address India's core concerns. The fact that Khalistanis roam freely in Canadian streets, they go about ensuring that they shoot down several restaurants, several prominent areas, needs to be handled. These anti-India elements need to be reined in. And the previous government made the mistake of not listening to India's concerns. Carney government and Carney's administration cannot make that same mistake. For them to move ahead on trade and shared concerns under the Trump era, they need to address security challenges that New Delhi feels have been ignored for far too long. Well, viewers, on that note, with that, we wrap things up on this edition of India Sense. Thanks so much for watching.
सैल्यूट है जी, आप देश की रक्षा में जान लगा देते हैं
और आप
घर घर में तार लगाते हैं जी। ई बीम टेक्नोलॉजी से बनी, न जले न पिघले, सबकी रक्षा करे।
हम सरहद पर लोगों की रक्षा करते हैं और आप देश के अंदर। सैल्यूट तो बनता है जी।
अपार अनुशक्ति फायर प्रोटेक्ट वायर, अपार देश का तार।
तू ही तो है जिसकी सच्चाई वाली क्लैरिटी की वजह से मैं आज यहाँ हूँ।
गोल्ड प्लस सिल्वॉक्सी मिरर्स, ऐसी क्लैरिटी कि आपको सिर्फ सच नजर आए, चाहे कितने भी साल बीत जाएं।
Vanakkam Tamil Nadu.
Well, the battle for Tamil Nadu 2026 is open now.
After Chief Minister Stalin rolls up his sleeves.
And Vijay steps in as a star challenger.
This is a mass gathering, not for cash.
Meanwhile, a former Chief Minister, Edapadi Palanisamy, begins his fight back.
The big comeback campaign by EPS has well and truly begun.
These are all the ultimate players, and this is going to be the ultimate test.
NDTV Good Times is something that we're supremely excited about.
We just don't want to do live entertainment. We want to create experience for you.
And NDTV Good Times is one of the most marquee and iconic ideas that NDTV came up with.
मेरा जो रिश्ता है एनडीटीवी के साथ वो बहुत बहुत पुराना है।
रहमान सोनू निगम के लिए जोरदार तालियां।
What seems settled for me is unfinished business. So I rewind, I pause, I reflect, I dig until what's buried stands up to be counted. Breaking ground, not just headlines, the meaning behind them. This is Breaking Ground with me, Vedika Sood.
This is the Zorawar, India's very own light tank. Built for a very specific requirement to defend our forces and attack when necessary in high altitude areas. Conceived of in the post-Galwan context and in direct response to the emergence of the Chinese Type 15 light tank, the Zorawar is meant
Hello and welcome to the Southern View. What's lined up over the next 60 minutes? Focus on Hyderabad Metro to the politics over Sabarimala and lots of breaking news coming in this evening. Namaskaram, Namaskara, Baunar, Nalarkingla. Let's head straight to the headlines this hour. Ladakh activist Sonam Wangchuk arrested, charged UAPA 2 days after the violent 4 dead. Internet shutdown in Ladakh. Curfew in place, sharp criticism of his arrest from several political quarters. A special report up ahead.
Protests erupt after Friday prayers outside a mosque in Bareilly in Uttar Pradesh. The police lathi charge protesters carrying I Love Muhammad posters. Protesters pelted stones at the police.
हर बार MiG-21 ने तिरंगे का सम्मान बढ़ाया है, इसलिए यह फेयरवेल हमारी कलेक्टिव मेमोरीज का भी है और हमारे नेशनल प्राइड का भी है.
Well, the MiG-21 bows out in style. Final flight led by Air Chief Marshal AP Singh. Defence Minister Rajnath Singh hails MiG-21, calls it a major training ground for the Indian Air Force. Well, first up to breaking news coming in from the ICC front. The ICC has decided to fine India's captain Surya Kumar Yadav 30% of his match fees. Surya Kumar Yadav fined 30% of his match fees for the comments alluded to the military skirmish between India and Pakistan, both during his post-match press conference and at the field after the match was over. In the final comments, Surya Kumar Yadav had dedicated the victory, Indian victory, to the victory of the armed forces that comes under political messaging. According to the ICC, which has been hearing complaints from Pakistan, India has also complained about gestures on the field by Pakistani players. Vimal Mohan, NDTV's Vimal Mohan, who's been tracking this very, very closely, joins us live right now. Vimal, tell us the latest that